Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here, because we're about to look right past the surface of the world around us. Have you ever stared at a strange emblem or, an intense ancient carving and just thought, what on earth does that actually mean? Well, today we're unpacking the profound realities hiding behind those seemingly bizarre, heavily stereotyped, or just totally misunderstood sacred symbols. We're going to dive directly into the geometry, the history, and the incredibly intense anatomy crafted by our ancestors to figure out the hidden knowledge they left behind for us.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, decoding Western occult symbols. Second, the universal eye. Third, the gaze of terror. And finally, the eyes of ecstasy.
Section 1. Decoding Western occult symbols, moving beyond stereotypes.
So, let's kick things off with the pentagram. Often it gets slapped with this magic label, but it's actually this incredibly elegant ancient map of the natural elements. The four lower points, they represent the material elements we interact with every single day: earth, air, fire, and water. But here's the absolute crucial part, that top point. That is spirit. The complete symbol actually represents the power of spirit purposefully ruling over the material world. It's a symbol of divine order, guys, not chaos. Now, a tiny shift in geometry changes literally everything in esoteric thought. The classic hexagram, the two overlapping triangles pointing in opposite directions, that represents the union of opposites, duality, and universal balance. But look at the unicursal hexagram. It's drawn with a single continuous line. And this brilliantly illustrates how, just by changing from two intersecting shapes to one unbroken path, the meaning shifts entirely. It goes from duality and balance to a symbol of pure, total unity. Then we have the inverted cross. In modern movies and pop culture, you almost always see this used as this super dark, evil symbol, right? But if we impartially look at the history, it actually represents the crucifixion of St. Peter. According to tradition, Peter requested to be crucified upside down because he felt completely unworthy to die in the exact same manner as Jesus. So rather than being this symbol of darkness, the inverted cross is fundamentally an ancient, immensely powerful symbol of deep humility and steadfast faith.
Another totally fascinating ancient concept is the Ouroboros, that iconic image of a serpent eating its own tail. Now, this isn't some symbol of self-destruction. It perfectly captures eternity. It represents the endless, continuous cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It shows us this beautiful idea that the end of one reality, or even the end of one universe, is merely the necessary beginning of a brand new one. It's just a wonderfully optimistic symbol of cosmic continuity.
Section 2. The Universal Eye, Awakening Consciousness.
The all-seeing eye is literally everywhere. You can find it etched into ancient esoteric art, woven into secret society emblems, and, printed right on modern paper money. On a surface level, most folks generally understand it as a basic symbol of enlightenment, divine providence, or just general knowledge watching over us. But esoteric traditions go way further than that. Now, what's really interesting about this is that when you look deeper into occultism, the all-seeing eye doesn't just represent some external force looking down at us. It represents the awakening consciousness of the universe itself. It's this concept of the entire cosmos essentially waking up, becoming self-aware, and finally looking back at itself. It's a massive, profound shift in perspective, from being the one observed to actually being part of the observer.
Moving on to Section 3, the gaze of terror, visceral anatomy in Odisha.
We're shifting geographically to India now, moving to a piece of ancient sacred anatomy that feels, honestly, intensely terrifying at first glance. In the museum in Odisha, there's this mysterious statue that absolutely demands a double take. The figure is severely emaciated, her face covered in deep, deep wrinkles. She has absolutely no eyelids, and her eyeballs are dramatically popping out of her skull. It's an uncompromising piece of art, and it really challenges our internal emotional regulation just looking at it. In fact, the local lore surrounding this raw, unblinking gaze is super powerful. They say staring into her eyes can give you nightmares or cause sleep paralysis. I mean, consider for a second how terrifying that fixed, lidless stare truly feels to us human observers. It taps into this very primal sense of being watched by something completely beyond our mortal understanding. And the details get even more symbolic. Her left hand is deliberately destroyed, but scholars note it would have originally shown her pinky finger pointing right into her mouth. And right on top of her head sits a crown of raging, deeply carved flames. This isn't just random damage or a quirky artistic flourish. It's a very deliberate conveying of intense, consuming energy and destruction.
But the most striking anatomical mystery is what actually covers her skin. Are those lines nerves, blood vessels, tendons, or these intricate networks of veins carved all over her body? This kind of iconography forces us to look deeply at an uncomfortable reality. It demands that we face the terrifying truth of flesh and energy, essentially testing our equanimity to help us understand the hidden spiritual reality underneath.
Which brings us to Section 4, The Eyes of Ecstasy, The Secret of Lord Jagannath.
The visual form of the deity Lord Jagannath is world famous, but his shape is actually the result of a divine eavesdropping. It all starts in Dwarka, where Lord Krishna's queens wanted to hear about his childhood in Vrindavan from Mother Rohini. She agreed, but she warned them that Krishna and his brother Balaram absolutely must not hear these tales, or they would be completely overcome with emotion. So, to ensure privacy, they stationed Krishna's sister, Subhadra, right at the door to guard it. Once the door was guarded, Mother Rohini began pouring out the nectar of these stories. The pure love of the gopis, Mother Yashoda's deep maternal affection, the innocent days of stealing butter, the glorious defeats of demons, and the divine dance of the Ras Leela. And these stories were so captivating that Subhadra, listening at the door, just completely got lost in them. She forgot her post as a guard entirely and completely failed to notice Krishna and Balaram quietly walking up to the door and listening in. When Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra heard these sweet, nostalgic pastimes, the emotional impact was literally physical. Their bodies underwent this miraculous transformation. Overwhelmed with love, their eyes became massive, wide, and perfectly round. Their limbs shrank back into their bodies, and their faces stretched into giant, overwhelming smiles. Contrast these wide, ecstatic eyes with those terrifying, popping eyes of the museum statue we just looked at. The anatomy changes, but the raw intensity of the divine emotion is the psychological anchor here. So the crucial point here is the concept of Mahabhav. Mahabhav is a state of such overwhelming, absolute, ecstatic divine emotion that it profoundly and literally alters physical anatomy. The love and nostalgia were so insanely potent that their human-like features melted and reshaped into this incredibly unique, wide-eyed form. And that brings the mythology right into the modern day. Lord Jagannath, his brother Baldev, and his sister Subhadra didn't revert back. They grant darshan, meaning they allow devotees to see them, in this exact specific form today at the great temple in Jagannath Puri. When millions of people look at the famous idol of Lord Jagannath with his huge round eyes and big smile, they aren't just looking at a stylized carving. They are looking at a frozen, eternal moment of pure, ecstatic, divine joy. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've seen how geometric lines map the universe, how the universal eye represents our own awakening, how an unblinking gaze forces us to confront raw anatomical reality, and how massive round eyes capture an eternal state of divine ecstasy. So I want to leave you with this question. What profound hidden truths are staring back at you from the misunderstood symbols you pass by every single day? Keep your eyes open, keep analyzing, and never stop looking past the surface. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you on the next explainer.